also be, here we go. There's the recording. So we'll also be sending the recordings out to you after the session for your viewing pleasure. So you can go back and watch again if you like. Just some other notes. You won't be able to turn your microphones on to speak during the webinar, just to keep a nice flow throughout the session. But you will still be able to participate. We're going to do a Q&A at the end of the session. And the way that we're going to do that is, if you go to the bottom right of your screen, there should be a triangle, square, and a circle. And if you click on those, there should be a Q&A option, and then you can post questions in there. You can post them anonymously as well if you like, and we'll try to get through as many as we can, if not all of them, by the end of the session. We've tried to cover most of the questions already that were asked in the sign up, but if there are any that we've missed, please feel free to put them in there. And if there's any specific questions for your specific case or your policy, I would say reach out to us afterwards on our support page. We'll try to keep the questions fairly general here this evening. Cool. And then we can go to the next slide then, Christina. So we're also going to have a prize for participating this evening. We have a feedback form that we'll submit as well. So if you participate in the feedback form after, we will randomly select someone to get some Feather merch, a tote bag and a hoodie from us. Obviously, if you'd like to do the feedback anonymously, that's totally fine as well. But if you would like to enter the draw, pop your details in when you fill out the feedback form. Cool. Let's introduce ourselves a bit. I'm Diana. As you can probably tell from my accent, I come from Australia. I did a Bachelor of Occupational Therapy, so I come from a healthcare background. I did that for many years, both in hospitals and in private practice. But I really wanted to change when I moved to Germany. And here I am at Feather now, over 2 years later. Really love it. And I am leading the expat health insurance team. Next up, let's go to Christina.
Cool. Yeah, so my name is Christina. I've been with Feather for 3 years. I've just got boring German citizenship to offer, unfortunately, but I hope that will do as well. And I've been in insurance for 6 or 7 years now. Before, I worked with experts as well and opened a branch to consult experts on financial services, but in the end, I just preferred Feather's approach much better. So that's why I was able to join and help the team. And ever since, I've been managing private health insurance, and that's also what I'll be presenting today. And then last of the trio, obviously, Mantos.
Hey, everybody. So my name is Mantos, and maybe you won't pick up on my accent, but I'm from New Zealand. I've been with Feather since last year. My background is not in insurance or in healthcare. Of course, I come from an aviation background where I did my degree in aviation and have since moved into this sector as a nice little change. I work alongside Diana in expat health insurance, but of course also I take care of some things within the public health insurance as well. Cool. So moving forward. Cool. So I think this will be a good opportunity to give you guys a little bit of a little backstory of who we are and what we kind of stand for. So we were founded 6 years ago with the mission specifically of providing honest and simple insurance. So here at Feather, we like to be super transparent about our products and, of course, your options when it comes to the different types of insurances that we offer. And, of course, we're very proud to be able to offer a fully digital service in English, right from the sign-up, submitting claims, and, of course, our lovely customer support. Another great thing about Feather is that you can have all of your insurances in the one place, under one account, and, of course, on an app on your phone. We also pride ourselves on our customer support, and you can have a little look on Google and, of course, Trustpilot at just how awesome our reviews are, and it's something that we're super proud of. So we can move to the next slide there, Christina. So just a little bit of a on an intro on how we build our insurance products. So essentially, we do this in two ways. Firstly, we research the market and we build a product that's at least as good as what is already available. So you know that with Feather, that no matter which product that you choose, what you're getting is at least as good as our competitors. But then further, we also like to build something much better than what's on offer. And today we're talking about health insurance. So our expat health insurance product is an example of this. And of course, with the entire experience in terms of price, how easy it is to manage and upgrade or switch to different types of health insurance, we think it's the best product on the market at that price point. So of course, you'll see exactly why when Diana dives a bit deeper into expat health insurance later on in this presentation. So next, please, Christina.
Right, then jumping in here and taking over. So the main insurances that we're going to talk about today are, of course, the health insurance trio that we have to offer. So that's public, private, and expat health insurance. It's 3.5 because there's another option that we'll dive into in the end, but we'll focus on these main threes and then leave you with a little bit of an extra at the very end. And to give you a specific overview of the main features of these insurances, you can see everything summarized on one slide when it comes to what are really the main features. So what you will notice very quickly is that public health insurance is a bit more expensive than private and expat health insurance, which can be surprising because you can also see that the coverage for private health insurance is much better. So then why is public health insurance that much more expensive? Well, that's based on how the pricing is calculated. You can see here that with public health insurance, basically the monthly price is based on how much you earn. So for those people fortunate enough to have high income, that unfortunately also means that the public health insurance will be quite expensive, even though your employer pays a share of your insurance cost. With private health insurance, that's quite different because the income doesn't have anything to do with the pricing at all. Instead, the cost is based on your age and health at the time that you sign up. So especially for people who are very young and healthy, that can be a really good affordable option. And as you can see, it's got the best possible coverage you can get. So quite a lot of benefits there. Expat, once again, very different. So here, there's just a set price that is applied to everyone. And the same applies also when you cover your family members. So as you see below, with each of these insurances, it is possible to cover family members, specifically a non-working spouse, for example, or your kids. With expat, once again, same price per person that's joining. With public health insurance, they are actually covered for free. So if you have a family here, especially a non-working spouse, that can be a great option just to cover a bunch of people for free. Because with private health insurance, again, that's the drawback. You have to pay per person that's on the insurance, which can be a bit tricky to figure out which insurance to choose, especially if you have a bigger family. But we're going to cover on how you can make that decision or a very informed decision about this at the end. And just so you get a bit of a better idea of what it actually means in specific situations, we have made 2 examples that you can check out here. So first one is an example for an employee. Here we're going to compare public and private health insurance. Reason being, if you are employed in Germany, this is the 2 options that you have, public and private health insurance. Expat, you can't actually be on that if you are employed. So in this example here, we've got a 30-year-old employee. They earn about 70,000 euros and they have no pre-existing health conditions, which is relevant again, because if you have the plan to take out private health insurance, as I mentioned, your conditions will be taken into account. So some people might not be eligible. As you can see here, public is definitely more expensive, even though the employer pays 50% of both of these insurances. So for this young and very healthy person, private health insurance definitely is the better decision, just because they can save a bunch of money each month and they get the much better medical services, of course. There's a bit of a difference when it comes to freelancers. So as you can see here, we're now comparing private and expat insurance. Reason being that a lot of freelancers actually can't join public health insurance or can't join very easily. So instead, expat insurance is a great legally accepted alternative. We'll dive a bit more into who can be accepted and what the conditions are later on anyways. But What you can see here in that example, again, 30-year-old freelancer, no health conditions. Private health insurance definitely is way more expensive. And for someone who's just setting up shop here or who's building their business, it can be a really good solution to join expat insurance because you can save a couple of €100 a month. So that's definitely a great affordable alternative. And just so you know exactly on how to join the insurance and what you actually get yourself into, we're going to dive a bit deeper into each of the individual options now.
Cool, thanks, Christina. So we'll look a little bit now, we'll talk a little bit about public health insurance. So essentially here in Germany, public or statutory health insurance, it's a government-funded health insurance scheme. So it is comprehensive health insurance. So essentially, all of your medical needs that you could possibly need will very much likely be covered within public health insurance. And over 90% of the people living in Germany are currently signed up to public health insurance. So it is a long-term insurance. So essentially, people are often on this for their entire lives. And of course, as Christina mentioned, so the cost of the insurance is calculated based on a person's income. Now, there are thresholds around this, of course. Now, also dependents, so children or spouses can be added free of charge to your policy. Now, when we talk about dependents, sometimes we get the questions of what does this mean? So with the word spouse here in Germany, it needs to be either your legally married partner or if you're in a legally civil partnership. So for example, someone that you've been in a long-term relationship with but don't have these official titles cannot be added to your policy free of charge. Of course, there is also an income limit. So if your spouse is making less than €485 per month from any income streams, then they can be added. Any more than this, they need to have their own policy. It is accepted for all visas and for visa renewals, which is great to know, especially if that's the process that you're currently in. So moving to the next slide. So eligibility for public health insurance can be a little bit tricky, but essentially it comes down to two different categories. So we have mandatorily insured people and voluntarily insured people. So essentially employees of a German-based company who earn anywhere between €6,456,000 and €69,300 per annum must be insured within the public system. So you can think of this as well on a monthly basis. If you're earning over €538 per month, you must have public health insurance. And of course, university students under 30 years old, they get a special deal to have public health insurance, where of course they can be insured for approximately €120 per month. Now, with this income bracket that we've got here, that doesn't necessarily mean that if you earn more than €69,300 that you can't have public health insurance. It just means that you have the option of being on public or you have the option of being on private health insurance. And of course, you may wonder if why would somebody want to be paying more for their health insurance, especially if they can get a cheaper deal on private? This could be for people that have certain pre-existing conditions that aren't covered within the private system. Then of course they must stay in the public system to get the coverage that they need. Our next category is, sorry, just back again, yeah. So we've got voluntarily insured people. So this category here is for people that have had, I guess, recent public health insurance in another EU country. So these days we have a lot of movement within the EU. People are working from one country to the next. So what happens is that sometimes if somebody wants to make a move, let's say from another EU country or even the UK to Germany, there's going to be a transitional period. If they haven't got employment in place, let's say they're coming, they're going to scope out the area for three or 4 months or so, looking for a job. You need to have health insurance in Germany, and an option of voluntarily insurance is essentially an extension of your prior EU or UK or EEA or Switzerland public health insurance, which means you've got 3 months from arriving in Germany that you can apply for public health insurance as a voluntary member. Its pricing is upwards of 220 euros per month, but it's a great option, especially if you need the full coverage. And of course, you can have your dependents or spouse on this. Next slide, thanks, Christina. Cool. So what's covered? So you have access to all public health doctors, hospitals, therapists, and specialists. So all necessary treatments, therapies, and medication are covered. So necessary treatments during travels within the European Union are covered. So you'll receive a public health insurance card, which on the one side has your German details, and on the other side functions as a European health insurance card, which you can use throughout the EU to get necessary treatment. So treatment for mental health disorders and conditions is also covered, and all pre-existing conditions. Basic treatment for dental and medical aids. So when we talk about things like medical aids, it could be something like, for example, a wheelchair or something like this. There are very, I'm not going to say the word strict, but there are very, very limited cases in which these will be covered by your insurance. And of course, they are handled on a case-by-case basis. Think about medically necessary, and you get the idea. Sick days for all employees are covered, and of course, preventative care and vaccinations. So what's not covered? So anything that hasn't been prescribed by your doctor, that will not be covered, including medications. So alternative holistic medicine is usually not covered. However, with some public providers, they do offer this as an additional add-on that you can pay for. So vision correction and medical aids is also only partially covered. Private rooms in hospitals are not covered. Extensive dental care is not covered. Repatriation costs also not, and also, of course, worldwide travel cover.
And then we're going to contrast that to private health insurance. So first off, why would people want to get private health insurance in the first place? So unlike with public health insurance, you do get access to more doctors. Reason being that there's a bunch of doctors and hospitals in Germany that just cater to people with private health insurance. And with some doctors, or with many doctors actually, they also reserve special appointments for people with private health insurance, which means that as a consequence, you also get appointments much, much faster because you're generally treated preferentially. Another benefit is that you can customize your plan a bit more than with public health insurance. So there is, for example, one item that's called income protection, which means if you are sick for a longer period of time, or specifically for more than 6 weeks, you might know that as an employee, your employer stops paying you income in that case until you're back to work. With the income protection, basically that kicks in when you are longer sick for more than 6 weeks, and the insurance pays out an amount of money to you each day, so you can cover anything from rent or costs for your kids. With public health insurance, you get a very specific amount. With private health insurance, you can basically decide how much you actually want to cover, and you can be very flexible and adapt that to your actual costs that you have in your day-to-day life. Then, as we've mentioned before, age and health play a big role. So especially for, again, young and healthy people, this is a really cool benefit because the insurance generally is very, very affordable. And a lot of people get confused about this, but the pricing doesn't change as you get older or just because you get older. So the price is basically locked in, and then it just changes if, for example, inflation is happening. Much like public health insurance, private health is valid for all visas or visa renewals or becoming a citizen. And as we've mentioned before already, you can also cover your family members here too. There are, again, a bunch of requirements to join the insurance. So first off, you have to earn a certain amount to be eligible in the first place. So with freelancers, for example, you have to earn at least 25,000 euros before taxes, that is. And as an employee, you have to earn more than 69,300 euros per year. So if you are below that, again, calling back to what Mantas just said, you have to get public health insurance, and private health insurance is simply not an option. Again, this doesn't apply to your dependents. So of course, your kids don't have to make 25,000 euros a year to be able to join. That's a given, I think, and same to your partner or spouse. If they have no income, they can join as well. We've also mentioned here that you might have to do a health screening to join the insurance. But I want to mention that this really only happens in a couple of exceptional cases. So for example, if you haven't had any insurance in the past 12 months, basically we just want to see if everything's okay before you join the insurance. And same is the case if you have any pre-existing conditions. For example, let's say you had a knee surgery 6 months ago and you've been to the doctor every couple of weeks to see what's going on with that. We might send you to the doctor just to see what the current status before we accept you to the insurance. However, if that's the case and if it's really required, we will automatically reach out if you apply through Feather, and we're going to help to make the appointments with the doctors. Plus, as you can see here, we're even covering up to 195 euros just to help you cover the cost of these appointments as well. Now, to give you, again, a bit of more insight into the coverage, much like with public health insurance, we're going to compare what's covered and what isn't covered. So as you can see here, once again, all hospitals and doctors that you want to go to, you can go to as long as they are legally licensed doctors and not something dodgy. And then other than that, it really depends on the plan that you choose, because with private health insurance, you can basically choose if you just want the most affordable option or if you want to go for the most extensive package that you can possibly get. So with some plans, you have some additional perks, such as getting a single room in the hospital, whereas, for example, preventative care would be included in all plans. And with preventative care, just a couple of examples, that would be cancer screening or blood tests or just a general checkup with your GP. You're not just covered within Germany, but also EU and outside of the EU. So you don't necessarily have to get travel insurance if you have private health insurance. As you can see here, unlike with public health insurance, mental health therapy is only covered in some of the plans. But for that, we have income protection here labeled as sick pay. That, again, is part of your insurance by default. Unlike public health insurance, private health also covers natural health medicines. And just to give a couple of examples there, so could be something like cupping or osteopathy or leeching. If you want to have a couple of leeches on your body or need that, go ahead, it would be covered as well. And unlike public health, you can also get your dental cleanings and tooth replacements covered. Nonetheless, there's a couple of things that are also not covered. So that would include non-medical prescriptions. Fun fact, this includes the pill if you are trying to prevent pregnancy, because in Germany, this is considered a non-medical prescription. Purely cosmetic procedures are not covered. So if you want to get a nose job, for example, you'd have to pay out of pocket. Same for orthodontics for adults with some of the insurance plans. Coming to dependents, fertility treatment is covered in some plans. So if you want to do IVF, your insurance would cover that. And on the right, you can also see that if you're planning to have kids, there's a great deal of what is actually covered under private health insurance. But for example, prenatal yoga would not be covered. If you are in that situation and you're expecting a child soon, I really recommend one of our articles where we detail exactly what is covered under public and private health insurance that you can find on our website, because you can see a breakdown of exactly the different services you can get before, during, and after birth in that scenario. And finally, coming to the switching process here. So some of you might have looked into switching from public to private health insurance already, and you might have realized that this is a great deal more complicated than you initially imagined. Reason being, you usually have to send out a couple of emails to your public provider, the private provider, and if you're unlucky and your public provider doesn't accept emails, you might even have to send some physical letters. We have decided that this is a great deal too much effort. So if you switch with Feather, basically all you have to do is apply to private health insurance and we'll automatically reach out to you. And within a couple of clicks, you'll be able to cancel your public health insurance. And it's not necessary that you've gotten the public health insurance through us in the first place. So even if you're just coming to us for private health insurance, you can do so without any trouble. And even if you might want to switch, another problem is that it can be very difficult to figure out if it's a good idea to switch, as mentioned, especially if you have a couple of dependents. It could be incredibly difficult to figure out how much that would cost and what exactly each person would get in terms of coverage. And that's why we've decided, even though that's not yet public, to show you a very cool new feature that actually, to our knowledge, no one on the German market has but Feather, which is a calculator and comparison tool for public and private health insurance for the entire family. So I'm just going to switch over to a different screen very briefly and show you what I mean by that. So let's see, there we go. I hope you're all able to see this now. What you want to do, again, this is not yet live, but in a couple of weeks, if you go to the website, you will be able to see that. You can go to insurances and check out the private health landing page. And if you click on see our prices, you will see this calculator. So something like this is already on there, but it just includes your own pricing. But what will come in the next couple of weeks is seeing what happens if you add your spouse and child. And I've already prepared an example just to give you an idea of what exactly that would look like for a family. So here we go. Yes, now you should be able to see that as well. So in this example, you can see it's an employee who has 70,000 years of income. So just a couple of data pieces here on that person. And we can add the spouse who is not employed, so they have no income. And lastly, they also have a kid in this scenario, showing you here, born last year in that little family. All of them are EU citizens. And what you will be able to see here on the bottom is how much exactly it would cost for the family. Plus, if you scroll down, you will be able to compare the different insurance plans there are. And once that feature is live, you will also find the pricing for public health insurance. So you have a direct comparison between what is private health insurance costing and what is public health insurance costing for my family, especially considering that you might get quite a big cashback from private health insurance. So for those not familiar, with a lot of private health insurance plans, if you don't actually use the insurance, you get money back from the company. So that's what we're offering here as well. And you can compare side by side. Plus, you find all of the different coverage items below here. So I really recommend checking that out if you plan to switch over yourself and you might want to have a family in the future, or you already have kids or a spouse that you want to cover. And you will even be able to play around with this a bit. So if you say, you know what, my kids should get the best possible coverage that I can possibly find, you can just switch them to the premium plan and see how the pricing changes. So that should be an incredibly helpful tool to help you figure out if that decision makes sense or if you're best suited for public health insurance, for example. And I'm going to switch over to the main presentation again, which you are able to see now. And coming to expat health insurance finally, so you get the full picture.
Cool, thank you, Christina. And that's a really, really cool tool. I think that's awesome that we're going to be launching that, and hopefully it's going to be really helpful for everyone as well. I think it will be. But yeah, let's get stuck into expat health insurance. So expat health insurance is actually also a type of private health insurance. I think maybe some of you already know this. And I think there is often actually a bit of confusion then of what is the difference between expat private and full private, like Christina just mentioned. So there are some similarities, but they are also very different at the same time. So the private insurance that Christina has just spoken to you all about, this is a very comprehensive insurance. It is a long-term insurance. There are more eligibility criteria. There are more things that need to be met in order to enter this insurance system. And the reason is it is an extremely robust insurance that is designed to have for a really long period of time. So for those who want to stay in Germany, you know, you can still have it shorter term, but for those wanting to stay in Germany, it is a really, really, comprehensive insurance option. Expat insurance, on the other hand, is what's called an incoming private health insurance. And these are designed quite differently in the sense that they are designed for short-term use and more as an interim insurance. You can still use them as your main insurance. They are still perfectly legal and valid, but they are designed for shorter-term use. So incoming insurances have a maximum 5-year limit from the day that you enter Germany. But one great feature of them, or multiple great features of them actually, is that they're usually the most affordable out of the 3 health insurance options. They're extremely accessible. Almost anyone is eligible to sign up, and the sign up process is super quick. It's about 5 minutes, and then you've got your documents straight away in your Feather account. And it's also a very flexible policy. You're not locked into anything long-term. We have a monthly cancellation policy, and you can easily switch over to public or private once you're ready to do so, or once you're eligible to do so. But as they are more affordable and they are more designed for shorter term use, they do also offer more basic healthcare coverage. They offer the most basic coverage out of the 3 options we're discussing, but we'll get into that in a sec. I already touched on this, but we do get a lot of people asking us, is expat actually legal? Yes, it is a legal and perfectly valid health insurance in Germany. It meets the 1933 VVG criteria and is also BaFin approved. You don't need to know what that means. It took me a long time. But if you are applying for a visa, the visa officer should know what that means. And essentially it means that it does fulfill the requirements for first-time visa holders. One thing to note before we move to the next slide is expat health is valid and legal for first-time visa holders, but it is not typically sufficient anymore for visa renewals. So even though you can technically use it for up to 5 years, let's say you get a freelance visa and you have it for 3 years, you'll probably only be able to use the expat policy for up to 3 years. Once you've got your renewal coming up, you will need to switch to a long-term comprehensive option. So who is eligible or most suitable for expat? So number 1, newcomers to Germany. Those who are just getting here, getting settled in, maybe they're not employed yet, looking for employment, or maybe you have employment overseas and you could go to private, but maybe you're not quite ready yet and you just want to, settle in a little bit first. We have a lot of people that join expat when they first arrive in Germany. We also have, again, like I said, for your first visa or residence permit, it's a really great option. Another big group of people that we have on expat health is students over the age of 30. So if there's any students here, if you're over 30, then you're not normally eligible anymore for public health insurance. And most students, unfortunately, don't meet the salary threshold for private. So for those, expat is a really, really great solution. And then we also have freelancers. So freelancers who earn under the private threshold can go on expat health, or freelancers who maybe earn above the private threshold, but they can't get onto private because of pre-existing health conditions. They can be on expat health. And artists, if we've got any artists here, if you want to join the KSK, that can be a very long drawn out process. So you can definitely use something like expat health in the interim while you're waiting for that to be processed. Cool, so what is covered under expat health? So expat health will cover new medical conditions that first commence after your policy starts. The medical care for those conditions is included in the coverage. So that includes both outpatient care, like visiting a GP or house arts. It includes outpatient specialists. It includes hospital care. It includes surgery. It includes medications. It includes like assessments such as MRIs, X-rays, things like this. So the medical care, the necessary medical care for new medical conditions is included in expat health. So it's actually, for that, it's quite robust and quite comprehensive. Other things that are included is repatriation, pandemic cover. I know we see a lot of those on visa requirements. We also include hospital transport for inpatient stays. And then we also have some non-medical extras under the plans on both the basic and the premium plans that we offer. We have physical therapy coverage. We have dental coverage for acute dental. We also have some dental cleanings and checkups on the premium plan. And on the premium plan as well, we also do have some additional extras like a skin checkup, some cancer screenings, pregnancy coverage, some aids and equipment, and travel vaccinations. On one more, we do have some video doctor appointments as well on both plans. Cool. So As I mentioned, it is the most basic in terms of coverage out of the 3 options. So what exactly does that mean? Well, the big one I would say is that expat health does not cover pre-existing conditions. So anything that was known, treated, or diagnosed before your cover started would not be covered under the expat health policy. That would need to be out of pocket. The other thing that's not covered is under the basic plan, there's no coverage for preventative care or routine checkups, so without symptoms. If you have new symptoms, that's fine, but if you don't have symptoms and it's purely preventative, that's not covered. There are some exceptions on the premium plan though, with dental checkups, pregnancy, skin checkups. So there are some exceptions, but it's not all preventative care. The other thing that's not covered is psychotherapy, treatment for addiction or withdrawals, vaccinations, except for travel vaccinations on the premium plan, disorders or damage to the reproductive organs, so either fertility treatments or sterility, such as vasectomies, are not covered. Self-harm injuries and alternative or holistic therapies are not covered under the expat health insurance plan. Cool, so this one, how to submit a claim, this is actually going to cover both expat and private, since they're both private insurances, and this is how they do work in a similar way. So if you are a Feather customer with expat or private, everything we do with claims is digital. So that's a service that we offer to our customers. Basically, you would act as self-paying or private as an expat customer, or privately insured as a private customer when booking your appointments. You would then pay up front and then get your invoices, prescriptions, referrals, and you just submit those all through the claims link in your Feather account. We will then process that and let you know the outcome and send you the reimbursement. All of this is done online within your Feather account. As both of them are private insurances, as I mentioned, it is out of pocket first and then claiming for reimbursement. But we do have people asking us what happens if it's a really high medical bill. I'll give an example here. If you end up in hospital as an inpatient and it's looking like it's going to be thousands of euros, well, those are the times that you should reach out to us and let us know, because in circumstances of a very high bill, that's when we can potentially work directly with the praxis or the hospital and potentially just send them the reimbursement directly, so that you don't have to worry about it. So yeah, for really high bills, please reach out to us. Otherwise, it is a out of pocket and then reimburse process.
Cool. So I'll take this one. So talk a little bit about switching. So one of the options that we offer here at Feather is that you have the option to switch between your health insurances. So essentially, for people that arrive in Germany and take out incoming insurance for a time, and then let's say they find a job, we offer the service of switching from expat health insurance to either private health insurance or public health insurance. So looking at times when you would switch is, of course, when you are subject to mandatory statutory insurance, of course. So once you gain employment, you must switch. So when you are a freelancer or self-employed person and you earn above the full private threshold, we recommend that you switch. Of course, we recommend that as soon as you are eligible for a higher form of insurance, either public or full comprehensive private, we do recommend that you switch. As of course, as Diana mentioned, expat health insurance is not a long-term solution. So also, and this is a really big one, is when you have an upcoming visa or permit renewal, it's very important that you switch from expat health insurance to either public or private health insurance, of course, if you are eligible. When you've been in Germany longer than 5 years, you also want to be looking at getting things into place prior to your 5-year anniversary of your arrival into Germany. You want to start looking at getting things into place so that you are eligible for either public or full comprehensive private health insurance, as of course you need to have health insurance in Germany. And of course also, if you are able to be added as a dependent on your spouse's public or full private insurance, it is recommended that you do so, provided that you meet the criteria that you can become a dependent. So the next slide is how do you switch? So you can see here there's a little screen grab of our dashboard on our website, and it's as simple as clicking this button, switch to public or private. So you'll be asked a few questions, you go through the flow, and then of course we take it from there. Now, the benefit of switching through Feather is that we will ensure there's no gaps in your coverage. It's completely free, a completely complimentary service. And of course, another thing is that sometimes when you find a job here in Germany, your employer will automatically sign you up for public health insurance with a provider of their choice. Now, if you're anything like me and you like options and you like to research everything before you commit to something, you would have known that there's many public health insurance providers here in Germany, and the provider that your employer signs you up with may not be the one that you wanted to go with. So here at Feather, we work with a few different public health insurance providers, and of course, you may want to look at one that provides better English customer support. You may want to look at one that provides better coverage for families. So the benefit of switching through us is that you can do this on your own. You can do it prior to your employer doing so. So of course, if you find a job, you can sign up straight away, and then you can inform your employer, hey, I've done it. But the other good thing is that if you've got multiple insurance policies with Feather, then you can still keep your health insurance policy within the Feather umbrella. You can log into your app, you can check all of your insurances, you can reach out to our customer support for any assistance that you might need. Of course, we represent you here in English. And did I mention it was free? So, yeah. Moving to the next slide.
Okay, so Christina mentioned that we're presenting 3.5 insurances today, and that's our little surprise at the end for you all. So what happens if you're not eligible for public or private health, and for some reason you can't use expat? Let's say you've got a visa renewal, or let's say you've been in Germany over 5 years, so the legal limit has been reached. Well, we now have our long-term expat health insurance option. It's called expat health, but this is actually an international insurance product. And basically, the great thing about that is it's not limited by the bureaucracy and regulations that we have to abide by within German insurances. And so it just crosses some of the red tape that we have with expat health, for example. So I would describe this insurance as a little bit of a hybrid between expat and full private. In the sense, it's similar to expat, that the coverage is similar, but it is a little bit more extensive than expat health. It's also a very accessible insurance. There's no health screening for this. It's also quite a quick and easy sign-up process. And it also has a really flexible monthly cancellation policy. So if you are at some point eligible for public or private, it's really easy to switch over, and we can also help with this. But the way that it's different is, first and foremost, and most importantly, it is compliant with visa renewals. So we've had success with our customers going for renewals with this insurance. So that is a huge benefit and a solution to a problem that we've had for a really long time. We've had customers every day that were in this position, and we finally have a solution. One other thing, I guess, though, just to note about it, where it's maybe a little bit more similar to private health, is the price point. So the price, unlike expat, which is a set price, this insurance, the price is based on your age and also on whether you pick a deductible or not. So the price is typically a bit more than expat, but you can also adjust it and choose a deductible and then lower the price point if that's important to you. You might be asking then, okay, so, why would I not just pick this insurance? Why would I not just stay on that rather than go to public or private if it's, maybe not as expensive as public? Well, I would still say that it's similar to expat in that this would still be a more interim insurance option because it doesn't pay into social contributions. So if you're intending to stay in Germany long term, you do want to get onto public or private health as soon as you're able to, because they will pay into your social contributions, which is really important for your long-term stay in Germany. So who is this insurance for? So for those who've been in Germany longer than 5 years and can't get on public or private, those who also can't get on public or private and have a visa renewal coming up, freelancers who earn under the private threshold and maybe aren't artists, aren't eligible for the KSK, or freelancers who earn above the private threshold, but again, maybe have pre-existing conditions that exclude them from private, or maybe just those that want a little bit more coverage than what expat health can offer, but are not quite ready to commit to, say, full private health just yet. So those are the customers that we would recommend this insurance to.
Cool. So if you're not sure what you need when you move to Germany, we have this awesome little tool. We call it our recommendation tool. So it's on our website, and essentially you can answer a few questions about your lifestyle, and you'll be presented with some recommendations of types of insurance that may apply to you. And of course, there are things here in Germany that you don't know you need insurance for until you get here. So things like you can see here, needed personal liability at €4.94 is an absolute must. And at that price point, you'd be silly not to. But of course, because we offer so many different types of insurances that can cover all aspects of your life here in Germany, I do strongly recommend that you take a look at this, because of course, we don't just provide health insurance, and it's super, super easy, very convenient, and you can get everything done within the day. Cool. Cool, so that brings us to the end of our presentation. We hope that you enjoyed that and that was informative for you. So now what we'll do is we'll take some time out to look at some of the questions that you've posted, and we'll try and answer these as best as we can. All right.
We'll just we'll start from the most. Should we sort it by most popular so we can answer first the ones that are most people are interested in getting the answer to, and then we can work our way down from there.
Perfect. Okay, cool. So then the first question that we have is, what are the most important disadvantages of private insurances in comparison with public ones?
Yeah, I might pop in there just to answer the private section then. So it comes down to what we've already talked about. So for example, one big disadvantage can be that the dependents come at an extra cost. And that combines not so nicely with the fact that the older you get, the more expensive the insurance gets, or the older you are when you take out the insurance, the more expensive it will be. Because, for example, for a family where one parent is 48, the other one is 55, and they have 3 or 4 kids, that's going to be a very important decision if you want to stay on public health insurance, because private health insurance might be very, very costly. If you're looking at the price point only, I mean, if you're trying to get the best possible coverage, can still make sense to go to private health insurance, but that can be a really big drawback if you're looking at the cost there. Another disadvantage can be that private health insurance is a long-term decision, so you can't necessarily switch back very easily. There's a lot of requirements that have to be fulfilled. So if you're employed and you are able to join private health insurance, you can't just switch back to public health insurance, but you'd have to basically fall below that income threshold that we've mentioned. So you'd have to earn less than 70,000 euros again to be able to switch back. And you can only do that before the age of 55. After that, you're pretty much locked in. So of course, the question is, why would I even want to switch back, given that private health has better coverage? But it's just something to really watch out for and be aware that it's not a very flexible switching back and forth between the two options there. So that's really the most important disadvantages. And Mantas, if that's okay, I might just combine it with the next one.
Yeah, absolutely. Go for it.
Yeah, perfect. So next one is referencing what happens when you go into pension. So I'm going to read the question first. Is public health insurance always the better option if you plan to retire in Germany, considering the cost will be a percentage of your pension, so it will be lower, while the private health insurance will still be a significant portion, especially if you go for the better coverage options. So first of all, that is true. So if you have public health insurance and you go into pension, the cost of your public health insurance will be based on your pension income. Watch out though, it's not just the pension you get from the German state, especially for someone who is a high income earner. That usually means you will have multiple income streams by the time you go into pension, and they will all be considered to calculate your public health insurance costs. So that's the first pitfall to be aware of. Second of all, the side of that is that with private health insurance, absolutely correct, the pricing remains the same. So especially if you've been employed before, be aware that your employer share will fall away, so you have to carry the full amount. However, with both public and private health insurance, the state will pay a portion of the insurance cost. It's very tricky to say which one will be more expensive, given the points that I've just mentioned. Generally, though, oftentimes private health insurance is more expensive when you go into pension and stay in Germany. So be aware of that. The only thing to mention here is, though, of course, you do get better health coverage with private health. And generally, when do you need health insurance coverage? When you're older. And if you want to stay in better hospital care or have generally better medical treatment, and it's not that much of a pricing difference, that can be a really, really great benefit just to get the best possible care until the end of your life. That might be worth the extra cost there.
Cool. Thanks, Christina. So next question we have is, how does the health insurance company reimburse medical expenses that occurred in Switzerland for a person that lives and is insured in Germany? Okay, do you want to put this on, Diana?
I guess it depends on which insurance that you've gone for. For expat health insurance, for example, we cover all countries of the Schengen. Actually, can't remember if Switzerland is in the Schengen or not. I think, is it? Does someone know? If it's in the Schengen, then it would be covered. And essentially, you would just go through the same process. You would pay up front and then submit your invoices. If it's in a currency that is different to the euro, then the conversion rate will just be done at the time that the claim is processed, and that's the reimbursement that will be sent to you.
And it is part of Schengen, just double checked.
Thank you. So maybe you can touch on private and public quickly, how it works there.
Yeah, so for private, basically much like with any other country that you're going to, you would pay up front and then submit the bill through your federal account, and then you would be reimbursed. Plus, like Diana mentioned before, if it's a really high bill, still the option of paying it out directly persists there as well.
And of course, with public health insurance, because you are given a European health insurance card, if you need treatment while you're in another European Union, Switzerland is included in this as it's in the area. You present your European health insurance card, and everything should be taken care of. In that sense, the medical provider will get in touch with the insurer. Okay, so our next question. What are the common pitfalls to avoid when selecting or using health insurance?
Oh, that's a broad question. Maybe I'll just start by saying that one thing that I think is really good is just to look over your policy and have a look at what is covered, what isn't covered. Because when it comes to insurance, it's not really about how often you claim. You know, sometimes I'll have someone that says, I haven't used the insurance for 2 years. Why was this not you know, paid out? You can use the insurance as much as you want if it's in the policy terms. So I think that's really important to be informed about what your insurance does or doesn't do for you. And all of our insurances, we have the policy details and things like that available in your accounts, or if you're not sure, you can always reach out to us. I don't know if anyone wants to add more to that question.
I can add some private health specific stuff. So one would be if you are in a stage where you might have a family eventually, or at least it's not absolutely ruled out that you'll have kids eventually, ask upfront what it would cost to cover your children later on, just so you have a good idea of how much you're actually ending up with in terms of cost. Or same goes for a partner. If you already have them and they might lose their job eventually and move on to your insurance, might make sense to use that as well, or get information about that up front as well. And then the other thing is, also loops back to what Diana just said, check out what the deductible on your insurance is specifically. So deductible means how much do you have to pay out of pocket before the insurance kicks in? Because sometimes people get attracted by really cheap offers of private health insurance and they're blown away by how little they have to pay each month. But then they go to the doctor once and it turns out they only get 25% coverage, or they have to pay 3,000 euros first before the insurance kicks in. So just to avoid that your service comes with a disappointment, that's really worth checking out in advance.
Nice. And the one thing I can chime in here to mention with public health insurance is essentially because all of the providers are state regulated, essentially the coverage is roughly the same, the cost is roughly the same. There may be some small little bonuses that some may offer. For example, one provider may offer 150 euros towards something and the other may offer 100 euros. So realistically, with public health insurance, it's never going to be an essential pitfall, but there are some slight differences that you can look into with different providers. Okay, so next question. What happens if I deregister from Germany? Cool. So if you're publicly insured and you're deregistering from Germany, it's as simple as getting in touch with your public health insurance provider and mentioning that you are deregistering from Germany. You will need to provide an Abmeldung certificate or a deregistration certificate. And in this case, they will close your health insurance policy and you will be no longer charged for this. And the same goes for your social contributions. I'm not sure if this is different when it comes to private health insurance, Christina.
Yeah, so in that case, pretty much it's up to you to decide. So in most cases, so in any case, you can cancel it when you move away. You can also ask to keep the insurance. Sometimes that comes at an extra cost. But if you say, I'm planning on moving to Canada, for example, and I'd really like to keep the level of healthcare that I've experienced here in the past years in Germany, it might be possible to take the coverage with you. In that case, if you're with Feather or any other provider, just reach out and ask if that's possible and at what price that would come.
And just quickly for expat, if you deregister, you can just cancel your insurance. It's super easy in your Feather account. You won't be billed again the following month.
Great. So next question. Since you're a relatively new company, what assurance is there that you will be around to pay claims? Who are you owned by and who finances you?
I can jump in on that unless you want to take it.
Go ahead.
Yeah, perfect. So first off, what assurance is there that you will be around to pay claims? So depends a bit on which insurance we're talking about. As with the different public health insurance and private health insurance and expat health insurance that we've talked about, they are owned by different insurance companies. So in fact, whether or not Feather goes out of business does not have anything to do with the insurance. That will basically just persist. Even just going a step further though, if the insurance company that you are insured with goes out of business, Germans like a lot of security. So a lot of people have thought about this upfront. Basically, there's something called a Rückversicherer or a back insurance, which means that if your insurance goes out of business, there's another insurance company taking over and you just keep the product. So even if Feather and your insurance goes out of business, you just keep whatever insurance you have at the time. And then as of the second part, who are you owned by and who finances you? So we're owned by ourselves, or Feather is owned by its founders that also work at Feather. That's Rob and Vincent. You can also check them out on our website, for example, and who finances you. So that unfortunately is something we can't disclose yet, but if it ever becomes public, you can follow our company owners on LinkedIn, for example, and all the information we disclose on the webpage as well.
Great. So, next question, what dental services are covered by TK Public Insurance? Cool. So as I mentioned earlier, with public health insurance, the dental coverage that is provided is very basic. So essentially, I believe you can have 2 screenings per year, so checkups. And let's say that you need to get a filling, for example. TK will cover the costs of a standard filling, usually the amalgam, I believe. But if you're wanting a higher quality white filling or a better quality or different material, of course, you'll need to pay for this out of pocket. Also, dental cleanings are only partially covered. I believe they only contribute up to 40 euros every couple of years. So the coverage is extremely basic with TK and, of course, other public health insurance providers. Let's say you were needing dentures because realistically you can't eat without them. This would be covered. Not the complete costs, but they will contribute an amount to this. But all the more reason, if you're on public health insurance, to have a look at our affordable dental health insurance add-on, which will bridge a lot of the gaps that your public health insurance will not cover towards dental. Okay, so next question. How does the health insurance company reimburse medical expenses, both in Germany and abroad? I feel like we've already touched on this. We've covered this, so we can skip this one. Next one, when will long-term expat insurance be available?
Yeah, so it's already available, actually. We have soft launched it and we'll be doing an actual page on our website soon. But if you are interested in this, please reach out to our support page. So just Feather Insurance and then click on support. Just write in there that you want to ask about the long-term expat, and you'll probably hear from me and I can give you some further details and help you get a quote.
Perfect. Okay. Next question. What health insurance options are there for a 77-year-old retiree coming to live in Germany? What would the costs be like for someone like that? Now, from a public standpoint, it all depends on where you're coming from, where your prior health insurance history lies. So if you're coming from the European Union into Germany and you had public health insurance in your prior EU country, then of course you can look at joining the public health insurance as a voluntary member. But of course, if you're coming from a non-EU country as a 77-year-old retiree, sometimes a misconception that people have is if you have EU or German citizenship, it automatically entitles you to public health insurance, which is not the case. So that is something that you need to be mindful of if you're thinking of coming to Germany to retire. I advise that you definitely research your options prior to making the decision to move here, because it may be that your health insurance options are not only limited, but they may also not be financially feasible for you. So that is something to consider there. Anything to add on that, Christina?
Yeah, I would really recommend in that case to check out our recommendation tool that we've highlighted before, because what you will be able to do there is just detail exactly what your specific case is, what your nationality is, if you have got any medical conditions and so on, and you'll get a custom-made recommendation of what fits for you. Plus, if you're still unsure about it, then you can also book a call and get a more personal consultation based on the information you've provided.
Okay, so next question. Is private health insurance similar to private flexible pension insurance in the sense that it's pay less now, pay more later, or pay more now, pay less later? I feel like we've covered this.
Yeah, I can go a bit more into detail. So the first answer would be neither. Price is pretty much locked in, and then it can fluctuate if, let's say, the cost of living gets more expensive in Germany because inflation rises, or any other factors that influence pricing in general in Germany. However, there is an option when you can where you can pay more now and the insurance gets less expensive later on. Very few people do that because generally the difference really isn't that big. But if you want to take care or check out that option, you can just book a consultation with us and we'll walk you through the exact pricing difference it would make in your case.
Okay, cool. So next question, how does insurance in the EU work? From a public standpoint, each country handles this differently in terms that in Germany, you are publicly insured and you pay towards your public health insurance system as a separate payment to your other taxes and such. Whereas in countries like Spain, for example, and I believe France, there is no separate contribution to your public health insurance, and sometimes people from these countries don't actually think of it as a type of insurance because it's a completely free social health system. But essentially in the EU, publicly, there is an agreement that there are European health insurance cards, which mean that it makes it easier for people to move between states and hold on to their prior insurance and transfer it into that of the new state, and of course access medical care while traveling throughout the European Union, provided there's an active public health insurance policy in one of the states. Okay. Anything to add on that, Diana, Chris? Yeah, cool. So we'll move to the next one. Do I get health cards? With public health insurance, you do get a health card.
Yes, and I can jump in for private and expat, you don't. But you don't actually need a card. You can just say that you're self-paying for expat or private if you're a private, privately insured. And then, like I said, you would pay up front and then submit for reimbursement. We do, however, now have a Feather app. So you can now download this app and manage your account all within the app. And within the app, we now actually do have digital cards for private and expat. You don't need to have these, but I think they're nice to have and nice to show. So if you get the app, you can get your digital card.
Yeah, and adding on to that, it's really helpful because some doctors get a bit suspicious if you turn up and you say you have no card, even though it's legally perfectly fine in Germany. Doctors might not necessarily feel that they go ahead without causing any trouble. So if you just show that to them, a bunch of our users really have had super good luck if they had to show that. Works out perfectly fine.
Okay, great. Next question. What happens to pension payments depending on the insurance that I choose? With public, it's all automatically taken. And of course, it's done as a percentage of your income. With expat health insurance and with long-term expat health insurance, pension payments are not included in this. It's not a feature of these types of insurances, just to be aware of.
And then with private, you'd have to appoint, so if you're employed, you'd have to appoint the public insurance that also takes the payment and forwards it to the right institution. And if you're freelancing, then you have the option of basically choosing that or not paying into the pension system at all.
Okay, cool. Next question. How does the health insurance company handle emergency medical situations for expatriates in Munich, Germany, including coverage for ambulance services and hospitalization? So I'm guessing this is an expat question. Yeah.
I do think we covered this a bit, so I'll
Yeah,
just go over this one.
so.
But yeah, essentially, if the ambulance leads to inpatient, it's covered. If it's an inpatient hospital stay and you think it's a really high bill, let us know. We can assist. Otherwise, like I said, pay out of pocket and then submit claim for reimbursement process.
Next question. What happens if a person loses their job while on private health insurance?
Depends a bit, which is always the answer you get if anything happens in Germany, because there's always a bunch of different legal options. But basically, it depends on the unemployment benefits that you would get. So if you don't know, there's two types of unemployment benefits, type 1 and type 2. And depending on the benefit you get, you either switch over to public health insurance and then the job center just pays for your public health insurance, or you keep your private health insurance while you are unemployed. If that's the case, because you get type 2 unemployment benefits, or because you get no benefits at all, that's also an option. You'd keep your private health insurance, and you can just reach out to us, because then we can help check if there's any way to downgrade the cost for the time that you're unemployed. But we've got a really cool article about this. I recommend checking it out on the website. So it explains exactly the different options depending on the unemployment benefits.
Cool. Next question, does Feather assist with finding doctors who accept one or the other insurance type? Yes, we can provide you some assistance with this. Just get in touch with our customer support team and they'll be happy to help.
Just one quick note on that for both expat and private. You can visit any accredited doctor in Germany. There is no list. For public, it's any doctor that accepts publicly insured patients. Unfortunately, as the public system is getting tighter and tighter, the waiting lists are getting longer, and some doctors now only accept privately insured patients, which I guess is another benefit to getting privately insured. So yeah, for public, there might be a smaller list compared to expat and private.
Cool. Next question. How does the health insurance handle pre-existing conditions and ongoing medical treatments? I believe we've covered this around all of the different types of insurances.
Yeah, it says for expatriates, so I'm not sure if you are on expat health, but for pre-existing conditions on expat, it unfortunately would not be covered. Private, it depends, but if you do have pre-existing conditions that you want coverage for, public health really is the way to go. It covers all pre-existing conditions.
Cool. So the next question is, can you provide details about any wellness programs or preventative care initiatives offered by the health insurance company to support the health and well-being of expatriates living in Munich?
Maybe I'll just very quickly jump onto the last question and add something there, and then we can move on to that if that's fine with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, just to be a bit more specific about private health insurance. So there's a couple of things that can happen if you have such pre-existing conditions. It's either you're not eligible with private health. So if you apply and it turns out that because of your conditions you aren't eligible, we just tell you that. What happens most of the time, though, is that either it doesn't impact your insurance at all, or what could happen is that the insurance becomes more expensive because of it, or that there's an exclusion. So very common example is someone's missing a couple of teeth, and what happens is that the insurance would simply not cover for any treatment or replacement of those teeth initially. But then again, once the teeth are fully replaced, they would be included in your insurance cover. And that's the case with many conditions. It's just excluded from your coverage, but you keep the same pricing, just to be clear on what you can expect when you apply.
Cool. Can you provide details about any wellness programs or preventative care initiatives offered by the health insurance company to support the health and well-being of expatriates living in Munich? I'm not sure if these questions are related specifically to expat health insurance or expatriates in general, but I can comment on public health insurance providers. Some of them offer different wellness programs and I guess like bonuses. And of course, if you're wanting to know more about that, by all means, you can book a call with one of our customer support agents and we can dive into that a little bit deeper.
And we've got a really great article once again about preventative treatment. So I generally recommend checking out our article data bank, because there's pretty much an article about everything, and that's one of them, at least for private health insurance. I think it also compares it a little bit to public health insurance.
Yeah. So next question we've got, I took PrEP, but I stopped it for 2 years now. Is it possible to switch to private health insurance?
I would recommend do apply. Again, it's possible that based on any other pre-existing conditions, the combination makes you ineligible as well. So often it's not just one condition, but how several conditions interact. But with this one, I'd say it's worth trying to apply, and then we can give you specific feedback on if you're eligible or what outcomes of that, like exclusions or risk surcharge, would have to be applied.
Great. Next question, just moved to Germany on family reunion visa. I was covered through my spouse's public insurance all this while, but now I'm planning to register as a freelancer in Germany. How will my public health insurance situation change with registering as a self-employed individual? This is a great question because essentially self-employed people do not fall under the mandatorily insured group, meaning that it can be quite tricky to get them into public health insurance. In this case, what I would recommend you do is get in touch with your public health insurance provider that you've been covered as a dependent on, and talk to them about what your plans are and if they will allow you to continue as a voluntary member, which will likely be the case. Of course, you will have to get your own new policy and pay for this policy, but your first point of call is, of course, to get in touch with your current provider and ask them for this. So just mindful of time as well, guys. We're going to have to wrap this up. I'll just quickly look through the questions to see if there's anything here that maybe we haven't particularly answered, because we've still got quite a few questions.
Just one that I think comes up quite a lot, because users are usually unsure about this, is what if I have a condition that I didn't know about, but then found out about it after the insurance started? So I'm guessing that's related to private health insurance, because this is where pre-existing conditions play the biggest role. If you didn't know about it, that's no problem. Of course, if you haven't been treated for it, or you haven't even known about it, that's just what it is, and then that will be fully covered by the insurance as foreseen by the insurance plan.
Yeah. Okay, quick and easy one. Expat health insurance sufficient to apply for an EU blue card for the first time. It's generally accepted for most first-time visas. You can find more information about this on our website as well.
Maybe I'll just quickly jump in on that one though. With a blue card visa, you would be subject to either public or private insurance. So you can use expat for the dates before you start working, but you typically, for a blue card, still also need to show public or private insurance alongside that. But you are eligible for at least public, and we can help you set that up. So reach out to us with that.
Cool. Okay, there were a couple of questions in here about household and liability. Unfortunately, we won't have time to answer any questions about that. But of course, as I mentioned, you can jump on our support page and you can see if you can find some information about that, or of course, book a call. So now, mindful of the time, that is the end of our question and answer time. Hopefully, we've answered the majority of the questions and provided you with enough information today about each of the types of health insurance for you to have a generally decent understanding of health insurance in Germany. Of course, if there's anything specific, feel free to reach out.
Yeah.
And
yeah, definitely reach out to us. Like Manthos said, if there's anything really pressing that you'd like to ask that we didn't get to in the webinar, just go to our support page. We can definitely answer you there. And I've just popped a link in for the feedback form. Just a quick reminder, if you have the time and would like to give us some feedback so we can improve and keep doing these webinars for you all, that would be awesome. We really appreciate you guys taking the time out today. And hopefully, if you want to give us feedback, please do. And remember, one of you will get a feather prize pack out of that. So yeah. Christina, did you have anything else to add?
That's it, just for you to see. I've also popped on the contact us page that you can find on our website. So send us a message, we'll answer within a day at latest, or book a call. You might just get one with us actually, or one of the team. So definitely worth checking in if you have any questions there. And that's it from my side. So thanks for joining you all. Have a nice evening. I hope we were able to provide some provoking material and hear back from you eventually. We'll be happy to help you with anything else that comes up after the webinar.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. Have a great night.
ciao.
Ciao.
Bye. I'm just going to stop the recording then now.